Hello, everyone. I said we would do a Faces of Loki video next few days, and so here we are. That is what I'm doing. Tonight we're going to be talking about a couple of aspects altogether. Excuse me. These are the truth speaker and the mirror holder because they go together hand in hand. We might touch on the oath keeper as well because he goes with the truth speaker. But in general, these two main focus is going to be truth speaker and primarily the mirror holder. So that's where we are tonight with our Faces of Loki. So let's get started. Okay, so I had to get a couple of my notes out here. And first of all, I'm just going to say a lot of UPG is going to be in this one. There's one or two of the stories that actually come into play here outside of Locusina, which is the primary source for this one. So again, a lot of this is going to be UPG because it doesn't dive so much, and most of the Faces of Loki are. I'm not gonna kid you on that. These are UPG as in experience we've had and personal experiences, things we've been through, different thoughts and beliefs that come from the lore, right? That is UPG. If it is against, completely opposite, that's not UPG, personal experience. You know the difference. But again, most of this is going to be a lot of UPG. You just have to throw that out there because there are some who will throw a hissy fit if I don't say that. Plus, it's important to say that because I'm tired of people saying this is what the lore says and this is true when it's UPG. So I want to make sure I don't do that. Okay. So now that that little disclaimer is done, let's get started. So part of what brought this up, or why this aspect got brought up for this time around, is a lot of things been going on. Personally, my own life, people I know, things in politics in the world around us right now, bringing up the mirror holder. So I figured he'd be a good one to start with right now, especially that truth speaking side of him and holding the mirror, which you'll see. So one of the things that most of the Nokians, the anti-Loki heathens and pagans in general, will tell you is that they do not like Loki because he is a liar and an oath breaker and etc. The thing is, anyone who actually really works with Loki and pays attention to stories will tell you his number one rule is self-truth. We'll go ahead and throw out there, Tego Floxen has a great couple of books out there about Loki. There is the Tenets of Loki in their book that they have. And rule number one is truth, as in not only truth to others, but self-truth. And that does come from both lore and experience, which we'll see here applies. So that's why a lot of us hold to that. But in all the lore, and we have touched on this before, Loki never really actually told a lie, except for once. He did tell a half truth a time or two, but never outright lied. Like I said, with the dwarves, he told them there was going to be competition in Asgard. Didn't tell him he just came up with the idea, but there was, in fact, a competition in Asgard. He didn't lie. He just did not tell them the full truth. He only told them the most beneficial part in which they needed. Still sneaky, cunning, yes, that's part of why we got the Scarlet ordeal that we talked about last time, but still not a lie. Now, when you ask these people what makes them say Loki is a liar, they can't seem to find any references. And that's because there's not. What they do find is, or not what they find, but the one thing that they say the most is where, Freya called him a liar. She said, and they'll quote, it's almost like cherry picking the Bible when the Christians do it, is where they'll quote, well, Freya said, Loki, you're a liar, blah, blah, blah. And the thing we forget is that particular part. When she said that was during Locusina, when he was telling everybody's faults in front of all the other gods, and he had just said something about her too, which we know from other stories, what he said was not a lie. So the only example we have of someone actually calling him a liar, or the example that they give most frequently, is someone going, "You're lying," when they just got their own truth told. We still do that shit today. That is common. How many times are somebody's doing something wrong and you call them out on it and they're like, "Oh, you're lying. I would never do that." You know damn well it's true, but they're still saying you're lying. Well, the same thing in this case, because from majority of what he said at that feast, there is some record we can pinpoint that either outright says it or leans to he's probably telling the truth. Most of what he said, there is backup in other places for it. Same with what he said about her, but she didn't want them to know he was telling the truth. Notice Odin kept his mouth shut. When Loki first comes back in the doors and they're all saying these terrible, not even terrible things. It was that one thing over and over. Excuse me, which was, you are too womanly, you're not manly because you gave birth and blah, blah, blah. And again, like we talked about before, he very quickly points out that Odin did that too. And Odin hushed. Didn't contradict him anymore. You also notice, and other scholars have said as well, you can read through everything he says, other than that case of Freya going, "Oh, you lie." Other than that one, the majority of them didn't actually contradict him. Like they did not say, "Oh no, I didn't." They knew he was telling the truth. That is what he is. He's the truth speaker. So moving on further, and I will say this one more part. I'm sorry for the truth speaker before we get into the mirror holder is, the only time that actually we know for a fact he did lie when he was getting Edom to go beyond the gates to so that Tiazi can come and take her away and have her apples. He told her, "You should come with me because I saw this tree has some apples just as good or better than yours." And she went along with it. Yes, that was a lie. But that goes back to his oath keeper aspect because he was under duress he kept telling Piazzi, no, I cannot get the apples for you. There is no way I can do that. I can't do it. I won't do it. He kept on refusing. But then finally, under total duress, threat of harm and or death, Piazzi makes him a dealer. He will let him go if he gives him oath. He oaths to him that he will bring Enum past the gate where he could get her. Loki did it to escape harm, death, etc. And it was Loki that went back and retrieved her. True, some people say that's not exactly right, but most people under threat of death will go ahead and agree to do whatever they need to get free. That's normal behavior. That's one of those circumstances that doesn't really count on the moral spectrum. You do what you got to do to survive. But most people in that case don't have the balls to go back and save the person afterwards because they're too scared. But Loki did. The thing with this, though, this one little lie, is even though, yes, it was a lie, in a way, it still goes back to Loki's way of making us think on ourselves, the way he shows us things about ourselves. Because if you were to really think about it, if all the gods knew that her apples were the only ones like that, especially living right there with wise Odin and others who could just see into the future, and yet her own naivety and vanity made her curious enough to go. She just had to go see for herself. So it was still a personal failing on her part too. Because she could have said, no, I don't care. But she didn't. And that's where the mirror holder come in. Loki likes to make us see and realize things about ourselves and about others and our inner truth. And he makes us reflect quite frequently. Again, this is where a lot of UPG is going to come in, but mainly Locust. I know we do have that. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm kind of saying here. So, in this mirror holder aspect, the mirror works two ways. In some cases, he finds ways to make us reflect on our own self, our own thoughts, our own feelings. We touched on shadow work recently in the last video like this that I did, and Loki is really good at that. Loki likes to do things, put us in situations that makes us stop and look at ourselves and what we're doing and why. All right, I've got to trim my bangs soon. They're getting in my eye. But anyway, so Loki will hold up this mirror to us and he'll make us look at it. He'll make us see. And the way he does that is little things happening. Sometimes big things if we ignore it too long. And it will be things that make us eventually have to stop and go, okay, I'm obviously doing something wrong here if this keeps coming up. That's one of the ways he holds that mirror to us to make us stop and look. And that's the mirror holder on the self-reflection part. He'll make you stop and think, like we mentioned with shadow work or just in general life. Something's bothering you too much or keeps coming up, and then you have to stop and you pause and go, okay, What makes this keep happening? Am I making choices and decisions that make this keep happening? Am I trusting the wrong people? It's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong. It could be that you've just made a choice that allowed others to do you wrong. It could be you that did the wrong. Either way, little things are going to keep coming up until you're faced with it and you look at it. Sorry, I have a kitty cat. It's chasing things. Oh, the mirror holder there. Like we said, you know, she had, been told he saw apples that were just as good or better than hers, and she just had to see for herself. That was her own failing, and he was the catalyst that made her, made that be seen or used. I can guarantee you she never went back past that wall again. Um, so lesson learned. And then there's also, the dwarves that we mentioned. He did, yeah, again, half truth, but point being, whatever it was he said, the whole ordeal was still, which one of you is better? He fed on their own competitive nature, which dwarves were kind of known for. Um, so again, it was just another one of those cases. He tends to point out these truths. Now, the feast itself, every one of them, he came and told them, like, okay, well, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you did this, and he listed them out, and he did it in such a way that, like, yeah, they were so mad, and they got him for it, but it was still true, it was needed, and they will fall for it eventually. We know Ragnarok comes. We know they're all gonna fall. Mirror holder kind of gives that a push. Unfortunately, as with that case, no matter what he said that was wrong, for some reason they kept saying that one thing was bad enough that nothing else they said and did mattered. And then to top it off, the fact that he told their truth is when he went and got himself banned. And we know people will say over and over that he was bound because of killing Balder. The problem with that, there are older stories, and we will talk about that some other time, where Loki wasn't even involved in the death of Balder. Rosetta itself actually says we don't say the name of Hot because he killed Loki. So tweaking went on there, we know that. But what does happen is in Locust Center, regardless of which translation you're reading, he's telling all these truths on everybody, and he's running his mouth, and they're getting mad because he's spewing all the, you know, all the wrongs they did when they're trying to make him remain the only bad guy. And Scotty actually tells him, if you keep on saying these things, you're gonna get bound. So she flat out says, if you keep saying these things, you're going to be bound. And he does keep saying it, and he does get bound. And flat out says that's why. He was not bound because of Balder. Even if he did if you go with the idea that he is the one that killed Balder, even with that, it flat out says that's not why he was bound. He was bound, Dottie said herself. You keep running your mouth, you're going to get bound. And that's exactly what happened. Because Balder had been gone so long at this point that there's really no reason for them to have waited until right then to do it. It would have made no sense. So again, he was out for telling the truth. And the truth people didn't want revealed. The truth people didn't want to see. And that is the mirror holder as well. Because just as much as he is the mirror holder that makes us reflect on ourselves, unfortunately, he also will use us. And a lot of us have personal experience with this. He'll use us to point out other people's wrong. And as truth speaker, can't help but say it, which gets a lot of us in trouble sometimes. A lot of people get just the prankster side, various forms. Some people get the mirror holder. Some people get a little bit of all of it. But what tends to happen is just like with Loki, the mirror holder aspect will come out. And then what we deal with is we go through and we're having these issues. And yes, first we reflect on ourselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I the one that's causing this? Am I the one that made them act the way they did? And then when we get to the point where we either realize that it wasn't us, or even if we think maybe it was, and we change the way we do things just to make sure it's not us, and they keep doing the things, then we know it's the mirror holder in action. And it sucks because what happens to many, many people, especially, well, I don't want to say that, but there's a lot of people that have really, depending on where you're at in your relationship with him and what your so-called duty or role is, there are times when that mirror holder really sucks. I'm not going. Sometimes it's not that bad. But what ends up happening is that when other people are doing things and you call them out on it, then they blame you. Then they say it is somehow your fault. Or they'll flat out lie and say they didn't do it, and you just think they did, or you're just overthinking, or you're overreacting, and it goes on. For some, they do actually listen and change their ways, and good for them, and happy for you, and you move on. But then there are those that never accept it. Unfortunately, in this world, those are becoming more frequent. And what we have is cases of, it's like you'll be called into a place, like something comes up, fate, gods, whatever you call it, you end up in some place, some group, some, whether it's a job, an organization, something. You just end up there, and there's little things here and there. You don't know when you get there, but when you walk in, there's little things here and there that are already issues. And you point it out. Politely, you don't even really blurt it out like Loki did. Just, is that the way we're supposed to do that? Well, not really, but it's okay. And we leave it alone. But whatever the case, when that mirror holder starts working in your life and you walk into these places and these things are, these tiny fires all around you, and the second you walk in, like the Locain is here. There is now gas on the fire, and it starts burning hotter and brighter and bigger. And what ends up happening in some of these cases that we keep to ourselves. We do the thing, we do our part, you do what you're supposed to, but then at some point, the things keep going. And then the truth speaker comes out and you point out, this needs fixed. These things will get better if this gets fixed or this gets fixed. And again, some will fix it, but very often they don't, because no one likes being told they're wrong. And in those cases, unfortunately, just like Loki, you end up being bound. We have the situations getting bigger and bigger. You call them out and you say, look, this is a problem. We need to fix it now before it gets to be a bigger problem. And then they don't fix it. And then it does become a bigger problem. And then every time there's a bigger problem, it's somehow your fault now. Because you made it happen in their brain. You made it happen because they didn't listen to you. Like you somehow magically made the other people do the things bad. Just because you mentioned it. Or they're doing it bad because they're mad at you because you mentioned it. Well, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have done it. No one mentioned it. But however it plays out, in whatever way, it tends to go and go and go and get worse and worse and worse. And eventually, you either have to choose to leave or you get pushed out. And in either case, it doesn't matter how, the second you leave, the fire starts growing even more. Even though you're not there now, but somehow it is still your fault. And again, it does suck. But you've done your job. You've pointed out these are things that need fixed. This is what will happen. You do these things, it will get better. Again, once you're gone, and it is almost always either you get to a point you know you have to leave, or they push you out. Either way, it doesn't go good on you because you go and you have to honestly tell them, I'm leaving and this is why. And then you're the bad guy for telling the truth yet again. And you're a liar, even though it's true. Or you stand your ground and you still try to help. And they push you out. One way or the other, they push you out. They let you go, they fire you, however it plays out, you get pushed out or you leave on your own. Either way, it's your fault. And then we'll keep that attitude for an indefinite amount of time. It very rarely works out where they go, oh, there's still things blowing up here and that location's gone now, so it must not have been them. Very rarely do they say that. Again, there are some who will look at that and go, oh, maybe they were right. Let's fix it. But then there are others who will go, oh, they must have, they caused all these problems before they left, and now we're just having to clean it up. Or, oh, they must have cursed us if it's a, a spiritual and magical type group, or they must be out running their mouths about us so that we're getting these problems. It goes on and on. Somehow it's always your fault. So that's your form of binding. And then eventually it collapses. Just like eventually Loki gets free and Ragnarok happens and it all falls down. That's the downside of the mirror. But whatever the case, when the mirror holder is involved, it's usually, I'm not going to say usually, I rarely say this, I'm going to say it's almost always the case of something being ignored, a truth being ignored. That's how the mirror holder works. For some, again, that mirror is simply looking at yourself and how you deal with things and hoping you can learn what you need and grow and get better. And most of us do. And at other times, the mirror is these things are wrong. And someone has to stand up for it. I've mentioned before, Loki's a lover of outcasts. And this mirror holder aspect tends to be applied like everything else, every one of the phases that we'll go through and discuss. There is always something that can be learned. And every one of these aspects also can be applied to pretty much any area of life. It can be your relationships. It can be your jobs. It can be other spiritual groups. It can be events, festivals, churches. Whatever the case, you have to stand your ground. If it is your own self-reflection you're looking at, yes, you look at it and your way of standing your ground is, I need to grow, so I'll deal with this thing. If it is reflection on others, using you as their mirror, seeing the terrible things they do in you somehow. It's up to them how they do it and deal with it once you're gone. And you have to stand your ground. You can try. You can try to fix it. You can try to help them fix it. You can try whatever's needed to get it fixed if it is possible. But at some point, there are some who will, go ahead and blame you no matter what happens, or call you a liar no matter how much evidence or whatever you have. And unfortunately, that mirror holder aspect goes so deep in some cases that they will literally blame you for things they themselves are doing. Or will try to convince you are doing things. They just know for sure you are doing things that you know you're not doing. problem is, unfortunately, with that mirror holder, you do get leading, that goes into the bound one, which will probably be the next episode. I don't know yet. But what leads into the bound one is the fact that they refuse to admit the truth. And they blame it on you, and they say you're the one doing these things. They will make up things you're doing that you're not. And if things start going bad for them, somehow that's your fault. Some will claim you cursed them if they're magical types. Some magical types will claim, like, you didn't curse them, you just did something else mundane because you're not strong enough to curse them. Some will claim that things are falling apart for them even after you're gone because you went around bad mouthing them to people when you didn't. Some people, even when shit's not falling apart yet, will still claim that you caused these problems, that you caused more problems than anyone else, that you lied. You can tell one person, this is the problem I have with you and why I'm gone, why I'm leaving. And they will still swear up and down that you smeared their name to everyone you could. Even if you never spoke their name from the moment you left. Sometimes the truth speaker comes out after that too. And then you start really telling the truth. That takes a while. That's only when absolutely necessary. Well, the point being, there's this mirror holder. And whether it's reflecting on you and yourself or reflecting, other people looking at you holding the mirror toward them and seeing you as a reflection of their terrible shit. Whichever case it is, the point of it is addressing it, fixing it, and being honest about it. And unfortunately, if that reflection is not adjusted, then you get the punishment, you get the binding, you get more chaos, whatever the case may be. So, however it comes about, truth is number one. And it sucks. And, I really hate it for people sometimes. I hate it for myself sometimes. But at the same time, I have dealt with these things that come with being Locan and truth and etc. for so long that deep down, no matter how much trouble it causes for me, I would rather be miserable and stressed and upset. And I'm not going to say totally miserable, but I would rather be hated and alone for doing the right thing and being truthful than I would to just not be truthful and not stick to my morals and my beliefs of what is important to me. I would rather be alone than to go around supporting people who are deliberately doing wrong. And again, it does not matter if it is relations, family, friends, co-workers, spiritual groups, various organizations. It does not matter what the case is. I would rather be alone and know that I did right. I would rather be alone. And now that's not saying that we don't fuck up. We do. We're people. People fuck up. But we don't lie and say we didn't either. And that makes it difficult at times. Because then the people that you're doing, that are seeing you as the mirror, they want to look at you and say, oh, well, you did this thing before. Like they did Loki at the feast. Well, you did that one thing, that time. Apples to oranges, maybe. Or you can do that one thing, and then it's like with the case of those, you did one thing, and they keep saying the one thing. And the people complaining about your one thing have done like a multitude of things. And you're going, if we were at court and I have one charge and you have 15 million, who's getting more jail time? Not the one that has the one thing. But when it boils down to it, the truth is better. Again, I'd rather be alone than be in a room full of people that do things that I know are wrong and not in alignment with what I stand for. That's the Loki in me. That's all it is. And that has honestly been a thing in my life since before I realized it was Loki that was with me. I don't know if that's why he chose me or if he just chose me a lot sooner than I thought he did. It doesn't matter. He's got my back now. Because even though these people get upset that you tell the truth on them and they make you to be the bad guy, you somehow still get what you need. Somehow. It still works out. Maybe not always happily ever after, but you still have what you need. You survive. You keep kicking. And you go stronger in the process. I did. Now, I've been accused of smearing people by name that I haven't even talked about by name or even by clues. Might now. I've had people that I've known in the Locating community who have had terrible, terrible things happen to them. And then watched as the ones who did it got babied and treated like they were the victim. I've offered proof to people that things were wrong, that things happened in different things. And it doesn't matter. When the mirror holder and truth speaker pop up, it's usually because it is someone who is resistant to that truth. And you just have to know he's got your back anyway. And if you get shoved down or cast out or whatever the case, just like when Loki was bound, then you know, just like Loki, you just kind of keep on shaking the earth until you break those chains. and you'll make it, and you'll be okay. But no matter what, you at least have the pleasure of knowing that those who continue to do wrong will fall. And most importantly, knowing that you did the right thing. Standing your ground, standing in your truth, standing in the truth. And even if the truth is never revealed or believed, you know you did right. And your spirit is happier for it. And the funny thing about that, especially in spirituality and magic, is when your conscience is clear, for real. When you know you didn't do wrong, each little accomplishment, each little strength, sometimes downright cockiness, that empowers you. It amplifies. Sometimes you just gotta go be lucky. That's the way it is. And that mirror, you use it to the best of your ability. Not only at others, but yourself too. Sometimes we don't like what we see, and we have to fix it. Sometimes that mirror shows us good things that we don't admit to ourselves because of whatever trauma or history we have, or self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Sometimes that mirror is very helpful. It's good either way, whether it feels good or not. Well, sometimes, I'm not saying, I mean, yeah, a lot of times, unfortunately, it is. Part of what brought this up is, like I said, I had this bunch of things going on. And I finally broke down. And I cried out to Loki, literally out loud. I told him, because I'm tired of being treated like you just for being myself and telling the truth and not giving in to fake shit. I'm tired of living like you. And I very distinctly heard. I'm tired of living like me too, but it is what it is. Yeah. God, I cried. I still cry talking about it. And then I was crying because it's like, really, just gotta keep dealing with this, really. And now it's crying because that is some damn strong energy right there. Because you're hearing it's okay. You can be beaten down, you can be lied about, you can be mistreated, lied to, lied about. Normally from people who claim to be your friends or lovers or family. And they tear you down. And just like him, you break free. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But it means you know you've got that strength. You can get back up. And what we know from that, which we will touch on when we do the boundary and the world breaker, is no matter how much you've been beaten down from other people's bullshit, or even your own, which normally does come from some form of past shit you haven't dealt with, whatever the case, that mirror that you use to examine the truth, tell the truth, and fix it if you can. If people beat you down, you're gonna break those fucking chains and you are gonna come out on top and you are gonna watch as they fall. Pop some popcorn. But you have to be willing to see and accept and speak that truth. Especially those of us who have dealt with toxic people in our lives. You know, those are things we deal with. It's no different than when you're in abusive or toxic relationships or family or whatever, you know, you have those narcissistic type toxic people in your life. It's no different than that. And what it boils down to is, I mean, yeah, it's not as terrible, you know, when it's work, but it's the same principle of you cannot get out or get anything better. You can't get anything better, and it will not get better where you're at. And the only way that anything is going to get better for you is if you look in that mirror, accept the truth, speak that truth, and then work on it. If it's yourself, you work on it. If it's someone else or some other group, you talk to them, speak that truth to them, and see if they're willing to work on it. If so, great. If not, get the hell out of Dodge. Or in this case, get the hell out of Asgard before the boat shows up and search riders come with their fire. Because there's almost always fire. And that is our mirror holder and our truth speaker and how those two aspects work together for growth, not only for ourselves, but for others. And the final thing on that is even when it is a case of others and that they don't see it and they cast you out and all the stuff we talked about, even then it's still a matter of growth. It's growth for you because that is one more check in your win column. You did not let yourself stoop down to what they're doing. You didn't drop to their level. You stayed with your heart. So even when you're bound under the ground, shaking the earth, causing earthquakes because you're buried so damn deep, you're still on top. Because when your chains break, you're the one coming out. Meanwhile, theirs is just going right back down. If it doesn't burn before you even get out. It's all about growth and truth. And that's it. So I think I went a little longer than I meant to. Again, I've gotten really bad about that, and I'm so sorry. But I hope it was at least useful. And I am going to probably tonight or tomorrow do a reading. I'm hoping to do it tonight. We'll just see how I'm feeling in a minute once this post. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this Faces of Loki. Next Faces of Loki, I would like it to be the bound one and the world breaker, but we just never know until I'm given a sign which one to do. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great night, and I will see you again real soon. Bye.